agenda for what we'll be doing together tonight. We are first going to hear from the City of London. Jay Stanford will discuss the Green Bin program. Then we're going to have Eric Brown from the Convertus Group here to share an overview of the composting process with us. And then Jessica Favalero will introduce 3 Londoners who will share their experiences with Green Bin and biweekly garbage collection programs, Donna, Gina, and John. Then we're going to take your questions, and we'll follow up after tonight with an email with links to resources, including, of course, library resources. It's our intention to offer a welcoming and an inclusive environment for everyone. Please reflect on this as you share your thoughts and your questions. Right, now I'm happy to introduce Jasmine Skinner, and she is going to share a few survey questions, and then we'll have Caitlin introduce our guests. So over to you, Jasmine.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome, Joanna. In online environments, it's definitely harder to get to know our audience, so this is a really good opportunity to get a sense of your experience, if any, with the Green Bin programs and biweekly garbage pickup. This audience engagement is voluntary and completely anonymous, so feel free to answer any questions you'd like, or don't. It's totally up to you. On your screen now, you'll see a QR code, which you can scan directly using your phone or mobile device to join our Menti presentations. And no worries if you're unable to scan this. You can also head to menti.com, that's MENTI.com, and type in the code on the screen, which I'll also put into the Zoom chat for you all to be able to join this engagement feature. So I'm just going to switch my screen here. We'll be able to join as well. I'll just give everyone a few more seconds to scan the QR code, and then, oops. We already have some very eager participants. But yeah, so to start us off, I'm curious whether we have any returning participants from last year's presentation. I'll give everybody about 40 seconds to answer, or about the time it takes me to take a nice sip of water, and then we'll be able to see everyone's responses in real time. Seems like a lot of people haven't been to the last year's Green Bin information session, to be frank. I wasn't either, even though I am an avid lover and user of the Green Bin. But a lot of people also returning, so really glad to see that you guys are still engaged a year later. Give everyone a few more minutes, and then we'll head on to our next one. So our next question is, what part of London are you joining us from? We've generalized some of the areas, so if you don't see your exact neighborhood, just pick the one that kind of closestly represents you. I like this data display because I like seeing all the little dots pop up. Kind of, it makes me think of like individual people. You know, lots of people from West London I see as well. But North London coming in strong and is a second contender. As a North London resident, I am a little biased, so hoping we win. But seems like most of our participants are from West London, with North and South kind of being equal contenders. Central London also having a lot of folks. Head on to the next question. So we're wondering, how often do you put your Green Bin out? Is it every week, every other, once a month, or do you never put your Green Bin out and you just want to learn about garbage and recycling pickup? Seems the vast majority of you are every weekly users from your Green Bin. That's awesome to see. I'm going to take a few more seconds here, take a sip of water. So about 21 of the people who are eagerly participating are putting their Green Bin out every week, and that's really awesome to see. Thank you. So shifting gears a bit, what are your thoughts on the frequency of collection? Do you want your recycling, Green Bin, or garbage to be collected more frequently, less, or are you happy with the collection? If you don't think anything needs to change, just select the middle number on this sliding scale. Whereas if you think it should happen more often, select the higher number, and subsequently, if you think it should happen less often, select the lowest number. Most people seem to be pretty happy with recycling. We can actually see how many people have responded. So a lot of people having no opinion about recycling or just thinking that very neutral and they're happy with the recycling pickup schedule. Some people are pretty happy with the garbage collection. Some people think it should happen more often. Very fair. And then green bin, most people are really, really happy with it. If you think it should happen less, few more. Awesome. We'll head to the next question. So on a similar note, please rank or rate your attitude towards these collection services. We have biweekly garbage pickup, green bin, and recycling, with your ranking going from 1 at not at all favorable to 5 at extremely favorable. So seems like bi-weekly garbage, real contentious issue. People either are extremely favorable with 9 votes or not at all favorable with 7 votes. And then some folks sitting in the middle, not too sure how to feel about it. Whereas the green bin, most people are very happy with it, but some people kind of not really having opinions and some people not being very happy with it. Whereas recycling, it seems like the vast majority are very happy with it. Just a few people sort of sitting on a neutral opinion. Lovely to see. We'll go on to our second last question here. Maybe slightly a bit more of a fun one. If you like quizzes, I love a quiz. But we're asking you guys, which of these items does not go in the green bin? Is it popsicle sticks and barbecue skewers, food soiled paper towels, fats, cooking oils and food grease, meat, poultry, seafood, giblets, and bones? Or can all of these wonderful items go in the green bin? Seems like most of you guys caught my trick. All of these items can in fact go in the green bin. And in fact, they were ripped right from the city's website. All right, you guys seem very well knowledgeable about what can go in the green bin. So I'll move on to our last question for the evening about what you guys were hoping to learn more about in this session. This is a multi-select option, so you can say that you're really passionate about the green bin and large bulky item collection, and skip an answer if you don't care for it. So it seems really good to hear that a year later, you guys are still really interested in learning about the green bin. That's awesome news. But lots of people still interested in learning about garbage, large bulky item, and recycling about evenly. So that is wonderful to see. But thank you everyone for listening to me and engaging with these Mentimeter. I will pass it over to Caitlin to introduce our next speaker.
Good. Thank you, Jasmine, and thanks everyone for participating in the questions. And just a reminder, if you have any questions throughout the session, feel free to put them in the Q&A and we'll address them after. So I'm happy to now introduce our first speaker of the session, Jay Stanford. Jay Stanford is the Director of Climate Change, Environment, and Waste Management with the City of London. So I'll turn it over to you, Jay.
Thanks, Caitlin. And welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us this evening. Hopefully you're aware, as of tomorrow, we've been 1 full year at the Green Bin program. And I'll tell you, it has been... Caitlin, can I just check to make sure my slide moved?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, thanks. Folks, look, it's been 1 full year, and we're going to be sharing some of the results in the next 20 minutes. A lot of the results, of course, are your results because we've been compiling information throughout the year. But some big changes came in. In fact, the changes that came in last year at this time, there hasn't been anything since 1996 when we made our last major system change. So it's been a big year, and we're going to share some of those results across these 5 main areas. We'll do a little bit of background, why we're doing some of the green bin work, why we went to bi-weekly, what's been achieved, and where we're heading. So folks, the green bin program, it is something there that municipalities are required to do. London was a late bloomer in this area. Many municipalities had started 10+ years before us. So we played catch up. With the green bin program, Well, there was a variety of positive reasons to bring that into London, as well as being sort of required to do so. So everything from creating local jobs, more focus on food waste in general, reducing greenhouse gases, other environmental aspects. It was a good reason to bring it to London, in addition to the requirement that we had to do from the provincial government. One of the key things, if you look at the amount of material that's generated by a home, on a weight basis, the food portion represents about a third of what you place at the curb, whether it's in the green bin or in a garbage bag. So all the more reason why tackling that item made complete sense. Of that amount at the curb, we have a portion that's referred to as avoidable food waste. And that's interesting, because when you really dive into that, and I did show these pictures for those that were here a year ago, what does avoidable food waste look like? And it is fascinating. It is the stuff that is half eaten, the materials that are spoiled in your fridge because perhaps they weren't wrapped properly, or it's those hot dogs that you just no longer want, and you either put in the garbage or now you can put in the green bin. But keep in mind the environmental component, the climate change component. The food distribution system worldwide accounts for 1/3 of our greenhouse gases, the problem material when it comes to climate change, of course. And when we look at how that occurs, it just suggests that further thinking about why we actually have food waste in the first place is so important. When we dive into it from a London perspective, we have calculated the cost of that avoidable food waste that goes into the garbage. And I hope this number remains shocking to you, but when I say that it's valued at about $100 million, approaching 120 million, it should open your eyes and sort of say, geez, no, food waste should not be occurring. And the green bin, yes, it has become part of the answer, but if we just began to reduce that amount, not only do we have those climate action savings and greenhouse gas reduction, it actually keeps money right in your pocket. And as you see on the screen, at just a 10% reduction would save Londoners $10 to $12 million per year. So don't lose that thought as we further the discussion today. Also keep in mind that home composting does not get replaced. Digesting materials in the backyard through some of the units you can purchase from the city for $20 does not get replaced by the green bin. All these systems work together. To the program, we launched a year ago. It was a cold day, if you recall, last January. And on the 15th, I think it was some of the record lows that we've had in this city for a while. It was cold. We launched East Lyons Community Center. Our Deputy Mayor, Sean Lewis, was with us that day. And the first couple of weeks, yes, we had to struggle with cold weather. Since then, we've gone through all seasons, all weather. About 128,000 green bins have been distributed in London. We have green carts in some locations, in some townhome complexes. And a green cart is a much larger container. It's centralized and used by others at that complex. And we still have a small area of London that still needs to receive service, about 63 townhome complexes, many in a category referred to as social housing. It's about 2,000 households, and we just have to work on some better systems to be able to bring them into the program. When we look at the trucks that were introduced to the program back in, well, a year ago, split compartment vehicles came in. And they caused some confusion initially because the back end looks like a regular garbage truck, except it's split. Green bin materials go on the left-hand side, garbage on the right-hand side. Those are used in the majority of our collection routes. The challenge is trucks do break down over the course of a year, and we have to bring in from time to time our older equipment. And in that case, we are not able to put both materials into the same truck because there's only traditionally one compartment in the back of the truck. In that case, of course, we have to send 2 trucks into your neighborhood. That causes some frustration and confusion. And there's also part of London where we have not been able to switch to the new types of trucks just yet. That will have to occur later in the system. That is the River Bend, Lambeth, and south of the 401. How have we been doing? Well, on average, about 60% of Londoners have been participating in the program. It has ranged anywhere in our monitoring areas between 50% and upwards of 70%. Plus, we have some streets that have been at the highest possible level, in a sense, 75 to 80%. We also have some lower performing areas, but on balance, 60%. When we compare that participation level with other communities in Ontario with comparable programs, we see that they range anywhere between 41% and 69%. On average, about 57%. The interesting part, though, folks, is that they've been at it for 5 to 10 years. We've been at it for 1 year, and our data suggests 75,000 households are on board and participating. And the initial Menti at the start of this suggested some of that was some of the audience that's with us tonight. Why isn't it higher? Well, on the screen, there are some of the reasons that we hear from people that are not only here in London, but also in other communities. Sometimes people just don't generate enough material. They use the backyard composter or digester for everything. Sometimes there's lifestyle and time available decisions that just impact a person's ability to use the program. Then there's the category at the bottom. They don't believe it's helpful, and they believe it's a waste of time and money. In my opinion, those are folks that clearly need more information, because there's 60% of the people that have been able to accomplish this. What have we accomplished? Well, over 14,500 tons of material to the end of December have been collected and delivered to Convertus. About 1,500 truckloads that were once heading to landfill full of organics now, of course, are going and diverted. If you break that down further, it comes out to about half a kilogram or a pound per day from those participating households. So thank you very much for doing what you're doing there. As we look around London, we find that our 5 collection areas that we have, well, you know what? They're all producing very similar quantities of materials. So from a balance perspective, the system is set up quite well after year 1. What we know, though, is that work is required in all areas to improve on that participation. The material, you'll hear a little bit more from Eric Brown from Convertus shortly, all sent off for composting and eventually turned into a couple different products, with the big one being a nutrient-rich organic product that is used for local farm fields not far from London. Comparing that, though, with the Blue Box program, and keep that in mind, we've been at recycling in this community for 35 years now. So those same 130,000 households last year recycled or collected, we collected at the curb, just shy of 21,000 tons of material. And you can see the breakdown between paper products and containers. That's our 2-stream recycling system. You actually see on the right side of the picture, the truck. Recycling actually has that split compartment vehicle right now, quite common vehicle in the waste management industry. And you see how the materials are kept separate, in this case, the paper and containers. In London, the participation on recycling on average is about 90%. So to repeat, 60% for green bin after 1 year, 90% plus for recycling after 35 years. So you can see where, once again, I believe that 60% is something that we need to be proud of. Biweekly garbage, we saw at the beginning there, a lot of people are here tonight to learn a little bit more about it. Why did we do the biweekly garbage? It is proven that it helps people and encourages people to use the green bin, because the green bin collection is provided, in London's case, 50 times per year, almost weekly. The incremental cost of bringing the green bin program into London was actually kept as low as possible, because we have less garbage pickup, which means less service, of course, but also the cost savings there were transferred to keep the cost of the green bin program at as low as possible cost. It's on average about $35 per household per year, or about $4.5 million. So it's an expensive system. It is one there where our goal is to keep it as low from a cost perspective as possible. The pickup system also benefits more recycling. It is also consistent with where other municipalities are with green bin programs. It has raised many concerns. We know that. Some people, of course, can't hold on to materials as easily for that period of time. Sometimes there's just too much material that is accumulated and the 3 container limit isn't enough. And if you do miss a pickup, well, it could be up to 4 weeks. My response on that one is, that's where working with a neighbor or two is very helpful. We've learned that people, though, overall have been able to comply. Compliance is anywhere between 0 and 2%. When I say that, that is, non-compliance, let me get that straight. Non-compliance, 0 and 2%, meaning the vast majority have been able to accommodate the system. Not always happy, but have been able to accommodate it. On average, about 2 containers out at the curb per week. Bulk waste, the large items, the large couch, the large mattress must be called in. It's been a full year and a bit at this system. It is still one that causes stress because people just aren't aware of this system. Many are, and it's working well, but others just need that constant reminder. When it comes to those large items, essentially, if it takes 2 people to lift it, it will not fit in the back of our split compartments. Therefore, a separate collection system and the booking system is required. Satisfaction with the systems. The 24 is the data, that we have recently compiled from a survey done between September 16th and early October. And it deals with overall satisfaction across a range of city services. And what you have on the screen here is a comparison with 2023, before the green bin and before biweekly garbage was put in place. Probably the biggest changes that occur on the screen is, of course, the last row. The satisfaction, whether you're somewhat satisfied or very satisfied with garbage pickup, dropped from 82% down to 74%. Now, that's a big drop. It's something there that we're making sure our elected officials are well aware of. That's who I report to. On the other side, a 74% satisfaction rating over those big changes in year 1, perhaps that is not all that bad. So there's a lot to unpack there. And there's going to be further discussion on if we have the correct system in place. More pickup service does cost more money. That's unfortunately the nature of the system. You see in the numbers that are not in yellow, those are the ones that are in the very satisfied category. So it's essentially a subset of the numbers in yellow. So overall, this emphasizes that we had overall a good year. When it comes to green bin, in my opinion, a very, very good year. I'll keep going with a couple items here before I run out of time. There are items that we need to continue to look at. We are pet waste and kitty litter. Diapers, incontinence, and wipes are 2 items that are still on our list, and I'll come back to those very shortly. I just wanted to highlight quickly for those that may be on the call from multi-residential living arrangements, high-rise buildings. In 2024, we had 3 buildings as part of our pilot project. We had hoped for more, but with the resources required at the curb to basically work through the biweekly challenges, the green bin challenges, we were not able to help additional buildings get online. That will be our priority for the first quarter of 2025. So we will be growing the multi-residential pilot project. As far as how quickly that grows, that will be a function of further discussion with committee and council because of some of the budget challenges and the requirements with the provincial government on who is actually the owner of those types of systems. My last few slides just deal on some of the key questions and answers that we've been receiving over the course of the year. On the screen, I believe the basic questions. If you haven't got your green bin, you should have, please contact us. A second green bin, this is not something we're offering right now. We are really doing our best to make sure everyone has their first one. You can purchase another one from retail. There are some green bins available at some of the retailers in London. If you are a tenant and you leave a home, please leave the green bin at that location. And right now, plastic is a challenge in our current system, in part because our goal is to have the cleanest possible organics. My last couple slides deal with I guess let's call them the hotter topics. Right now, when it comes to those that have diapers and related items, yes, you may not have the capacity in the current system, and it's requiring you to purchase a tag or two with your garbage pickup every 2 weeks. We continue to look at other systems in other communities, but overall, most municipalities do not offer additional services. Some do. In London, though, when we've asked about this, there are many that are interested. Most, though, are not interested in paying more for a service. So something we've got to consider as we move forward. With pet waste, it's an item that more green bin communities have added this material in the last couple of years. It's something that we're closely looking at here in London. It does come with its pros and cons. It is an additional price. It is something that we're going to be discussing with committee and council in the next couple of months about an item that probably is the next item that could be added to the green bin program. This one I'm not proud of at all. We get a lot of questions and comments about bins that are not being handled properly by the collectors. That includes garbage cans and recycling bins from time to time. No, there is no good excuse on why that's not occurring. We must do much more work with our staff to ensure that we're meeting your satisfaction at the curb. We've seen many areas where things are perfect, then we see places where it just falls off the rail. I'll be honest, I get embarrassed when I see sites like that. So it's high on our radar list. If a green bin is damaged, let us know, because it may be under warranty, or we will fix it. Some of these are very easy fixes. Monitoring and reporting, it's ongoing. These are big system changes, and the way to improve and learn is to continue to monitor and report back. Our first feedback form, many of you may have been involved in it. We had 7,500 replies to that. That closed off in the summer, and we reported to committee and council. We just ended our second feedback form on Sunday. We had, I believe, 3,700 replies. So you add those two numbers together, we've heard from a lot of Londoners. It's been a very busy year. There's a lot more work still to do on this, though, but I'll tell you, for us, it is a time of celebration heading into tomorrow, the 1-year anniversary. Thank you all for not only joining us tonight, but I'll tell you, you've made contributions that are huge. We've set the bar for after 1 year. We know there's more work to do. And in the end there, you see as my number 5, please help inspire others to come to the level that you've achieved in the system. Thanks, everyone. And I'll be staying around all night here, looking forward to hearing from others. Thanks, Caitlin.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jay, for your presentation and closing thoughts as well. And then I can also see lots of people are posting in the Q&A. So just another friendly reminder, if you have questions throughout the next little bit, feel free to put them in there. And I'm happy to now introduce Eric Brown, who is the Director of Operations with Convertus.
Thank you, Caitlin. I'm Eric Brown. Good evening, with the Director of Operations for the Convertus Group, and I'm here to give an overview of the City of London's Green Bin program from the processor's perspective. And I'm excited here to be not just as the Director of Operations, but also as a proud Londoner and an active user of the Green Bin myself. So Convertus, our mission is closing the loop for a better future. So in collecting the green bin materials, we do that by partnering with communities. We design, build, operate, and service state-of-the-art organic waste treatment facilities. And by taking those green bin materials, we actually give resources a new life. Now, Convertus is the largest and most advanced organic waste operator. We process up to 580,000 tons of organic waste annually. And from that, we produce almost 250,000 tons of compost organic product. We do this across 13 facilities, most of them in Canada. We have a couple in the United States. And we have one facility that produces renewable natural gas. And we produce up to 80,000 gigajoules of renewable gas. Now, the Convertus Group is proudly headquartered right here in London, Ontario. And we also have a facility here. as well as I have a facility in Ottawa and 2 in British Columbia, Nanaimo and Surrey. We're currently building the largest gas producing plant in the York region, north of Toronto, another smaller gas producing facility in Saint-Anne, Quebec. We have a business called Environ, which is located mainly in New Brunswick, as well as a site in Nova Scotia and Maine, and they produce a lot of the products you would see at one of your mega stores, whether it's a grocery or a hardware store, the bag products. And we recently acquired our first standalone site in the United States in Manassas, Virginia, which is just south of Washington, D.C. Now, the facility that receives the London waste is the London facility. It's located just south of 401 off Wellington Road. And it's a tunnel compost, as we call it. It has some technology such as heat recovery. Composting generates a lot of heat, so we're able to recover that heat and either warm the air in our building this time of the year when it's very cold, or actually put it back into our tunnels to advance the composting process. We also take odor abatement pretty seriously because composting does create odors, but we have systems in place for that. The materials we receive, the grain bin materials, SSOs. We also receive a little bit of leaf and yard waste and commercial waste, so food waste from restaurants and food processors. We have 12 tunnels, and the materials put in the tunnels for 10 to 14 days to compost it. And when we talk about odor abatement, composting produces nitrogen. And so we take the ammonia and we scrub it out. We cool it, we put it through biofilters, so we can actually disperse clean air and water vapor out of our 60-meter stack. And in London, we produce composted product, about 18,000 tons of material, and ammonia sulfate, about 1,500 tons of that product. Now, Jay touched upon this quickly, but we're proud, as he said, it's the anniversary of the 1-year anniversary of the London Green Bin program. And we processed 14,482 tons of organic waste. From that, we've produced over 2,000 tons of compost product. But more importantly, we've diverted 14,500 tons of organic waste from the landfill, and we reduced carbon emissions from that waste of 1,000 to 1,400 tons of CO2. I have a short video which kind of shows when your material shows up in the London facility and what happens to it and what we produce with it.
Communities to give resources new life by converting organic waste into renewable energy and nutrient-rich fertilizers. We have the unique ability to design, build, operate, and service organic waste treatment facilities. Convertus has processed over 2 million tons of organic waste since 2008, starting with our first processing facility in London, Ontario. At this facility, we utilize advanced in-vessel composting technology to convert organic waste into compost. Here's how it works. Our process starts in the receiving hall, where organic waste is trucked to the facility and unloaded into one of our receiving bays. Front-end loaders feed incoming organics through a low-speed shredder, exposing organic waste for processing. Our process experts mix freshly shredded waste with wood chips and screened material that is returned from past composting cycles. The freshly shredded waste is moved to our in-vessel compost tunnels that utilizes a spigot aeration system that injects air into the material. Once the composting tunnels have been filled, the doors are closed to create a fully contained composting environment. The Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition, otherwise known as SCADA, is a computer-controlled system that monitors the internal environment through sensors in each tunnel and adjusts the temperature, humidity, and pressure levels through the spigot aeration system, which optimizes biological activity. After this composting process is complete, the material is transferred from our tunnels to our compost screening system, where the fine compost fraction is separated from the larger pieces of organic material and contamination like plastic, glass, stones, or metal. The final product is tested by a third-party lab to ensure we are meeting all quality requirements before it's sold as nutrient-rich compost to local agricultural partners. During the natural composting process, proteins found in food waste break down and release an unpleasant odor called ammonia. Our fully enclosed facility was designed to mitigate any odor impact on our nearby communities by maintaining negative air pressure within the building. This allows us to capture and treat all facility and process air through our odor abatement system before it is released. Process air and facility air is first treated through ammonia scrubbers, which utilizes an acid misting system to attach to ammonia particles and produce ammonium sulfate, a CFIA-registered fertilizer utilized by nearby farmers. After the scrubbers, the air is cooled and humidified before passing through our wood chip biofilters to absorb any remaining odor compounds before being dispersed through our 70-meter stack as water vapor. Our mission and purpose is to create a better world for future generations by reducing methane emissions through sustainable organic waste processing. We continually invest in new technologies to further decarbonize our operations, including the installation of commercial heat exchangers at our London facility to capture and reuse thermal energy produced from our building and composting process in replacement of fossil fuel heating sources. Here at Convertus, we are closing the loop for a better future. Let's build a sustainable future for our children together.
So as you can see, when we process the that dirty green bin and it comes in, and we actually produce several quality products here. Probably one of the biggest one we have is agricultural compost. It's a composted product that gets applied to local farmland. It improves the soil structure, it boosts nutrient levels, and it's a cost-effective alternative to a synthetic and chemical fertilizer. So we're displacing those. We also can produce with an extended maturation period, Class A compost, and that's organic material which you can use in your gardens, and it enhances water retention, provides essential nutrients and promotes microbial activity. And then we talked about scrubbing the air and removing the ammonia. So ammonia sulfate is Canadian Food Inspection Agency registered fertilizer, and it's used in alkaline soils to lower the pH and contributes nitrogen for essential plant growth. So 3 really great products that come from the green bins and are used in gardens and farms. Now, I'm pretty excited about this. We actually took some of the London Green Bin product and we took it to an extended maturation. Most of the product does go to farmers' fields, but we've created a lawn and garden compost. And we're looking forward to, in April, when we do the Green in the City, hopefully be able to distribute some of this product to Londoners. It's perfect for lawn maintenance and repair, your shrubs and tree beds, or your vegetable and flower gardens. Now, there's no greater compliment. We reached out to a couple of our agricultural partners and asked them what they think. They've been using these products for, a year, which a majority of our output of our plant goes. And so for McNally Farms, the compost really helps build organic matter. In the absence of manure, which some of our farms haven't seen in years, the compost puts organics in the soil that commercial fertilizers don't have. You can see increased crop yields over the years and overall a healthier crop. And then our friends at McDougall Farms, even with the high use of sow and cattle manure, the compost is the closest we have found in terms of organic content. The high level macro and micronutrients in the compost allows for higher yields and supplements the use of commercial fertilizers, especially on sandy and quick land. It is evident after continuous use that the soil is stronger and more richly into more growth. So it's really great that we're closing the loop by taking the food waste that we take from our houses and our restaurants and putting it back into the agricultural area. Now, a presentation wouldn't be complete without a few kind of fun facts. So my team put this together for me. People put metal accidentally into the green bins, and one of our employees actually collects it throughout the year. And when they have enough to take it to the local scrapyard, they take it, they cash it in, they get a little extra cash. Now, the second fun fact is more of a cautionary tale. We've been receiving a few of the kitchen green bins, the ones that are under your counter, showing up. So instead of dumping the material out, we've been putting the whole green small bin in the big green bin. And of course, whoops, you don't want to do that. And then finally, at the Convertus Group, We think giving back to the community, particularly the one that we are headquartered in, is really important. So just highlighting some of the 2024 things we participate in. I'm obviously Green in the City. And as part of that, the Clean and Green, where we clean up not just our grounds, but also the neighborhoods that ourselves and our staff live in. We had the honor of having a booth at Earthfest, where we got to meet lots of local citizens of London and talk about the Green Bin program as it was just starting up at that time. And we partnered with Reforest London, not just participating in tree plantings. We also hosted a tree depot at our headquarters where local citizens could come by, grab a tree or two, which they could plant on their own property. And most importantly, we support the food bank through the London Cares Curb Hunger food drive. So on behalf of the Convertis Group, I'd like to thank everybody for taking some time to listen to me this evening. And I'll pass it back to Caitlin.
Thank you so much, Eric. We've been with London Environmental Network, we've been able to work with Convertis on a number of different projects and collaborate in different ways. So it's great to see. Yeah, it's just interesting and nice to see all that Convertis is doing in the community too. So with that, I will pass it over to Jessica, who will start our Green Bin panel discussion and introduce our panelists. So Jessica Favalero is the manager of waste diversion programs with the City of London, and I'll let you introduce our panelists for tonight.
Great. Thank you, Caitlin. Welcome everyone and our special guests. Thank you for joining this session this evening. Like Caitlin had mentioned, my name is Jessica Favalero, and I'm with the City of London, and I'll be facilitating our discussions with our three panelists that have joined us this evening. We have Donna, Gina, and John, and we're going to be asking 6 questions to hear about their lived experiences with using the Green Bin program and biweekly garbage pickup. All right, so to start things off, we'd like to hear about what you've been enjoying about the Green Bin program. Donna, let's start with you for the first question. What has been your most favorite thing about using the Green Bin program?
Oh, diverting all of that good leftover food items so that Convertis can make it into that great organic soil for our gardens. And it reduces lots of garbage. We're down to 1 grocery bag every 2 weeks.
That's really great to hear. Thank you for sharing. Gina, let's hear from you.
Yeah, I think very similar. I like knowing that my food waste is now contributing to something greater. So I do have a compost, but I've always kind of felt that, you know, for the garden. But I was feeling sort of like something was missing. The communities that I lived in before, so I lived in Victoria, BC, and then I lived in a town called St. Andrews in Scotland, and they both had a green bin. So coming here and not having that, I knew that a lot of the food was getting diverted into the garbage that could be used. So it really does make me just feel better knowing that that is getting used more usefully.
That's great. And lastly, John, what's your favorite thing about the Green Bin program?
In addition to what has already been said, I think having a plastic and whatever the leftover waste pick up on a fixed schedule instead of 8 days, instead of every Tuesdays, has been just better for us as a family. It's been really nice to know, in addition to just knowing that reusable material is not being wasted and tossed in, landfill.
All right. Thank you all. Those are really great insights. And I think that you've all brought up some really valuable points about the benefits of using the Green Bin program. And let's turn things around a little bit. We've heard what you've been enjoying, but let's find out what you may like the least. Gina, let's start with you. What things do you like the least about the Green Bin program?
I think at the beginning, I found it a little smelly. I had it set on my counter, and I found it's on my counter right now, which I find fine in the winter, but during the summer months, I found I was getting some fruit flies, so I had to move it outside, and then move it into the bigger bin, which helped with that. I mean, it creates that I need to move a little bit further, to get the waste in there. But it did kind of help keep the fruit flies off the counter. I've also tried putting it under the counter. I still got some fruit flies there. So just kind of dealing with that kind of like household, where should I situate this? I have the same struggles. I have my green bin and then my compost beside each other. So it was the same with the compost. So I was trying to figure out what to do with those items in the hotter summer months.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that troubleshooting you're trying at home. John, what are your thoughts?
I think hot summer days. My situation in London is I have the luxury of having a garage to store it in. Even on hot summer days, though, you're going to get flies and things that can leak in. When I lived in a different city with a similar system, if you don't have that storage, I recognize that I have the privilege and luxury of a garage that not everyone does. So while I don't have that experience in London, not having adequate storage based on your living situation is a frustration that I would feel if I were living the way I was 15 years ago.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing that perspective. And Donna, how about you?
Probably the only challenge we had was, where is that cute little kitchen one going to go? Situated in the kitchen. Do I want it on the counter? Do I want it under the counter? And so we had to just rejig underneath our sink. We just got a smaller garbage bin and it fits perfect. So that was really the only thing I could think of that was I didn't have anything else to think of that was wrong with the program.
Okay. All right. Thank you all for being open and honest about what may have been a struggle at home when you've been using the Green Bin program. So now let's be a little bit more specific. The Green Bin program requires us to separate our food items carefully, and we know that some items might be tricky. Which food items do you think are the most difficult to separate? John, let's start with you.
We've had no issues separating. It's incredibly broad in terms of what the system can take. It's more things like, oh, if we have a second garbage or a third garbage, in the bathroom, where you're like, well, the Kleenex can be saved, but the other stuff cannot. That gets a little finicky, but on the whole, it's not hard to if it rots, it goes in the garbage. It's pretty straightforward.
Right. And Donna, would you like to share?
Probably food items that have a higher fluid content. That sometimes can be a little tricky because that may have a higher odor. So the trick that we did is we just will put it in some sort of container, and then the night before pickup day, we pop it out of the freezer, we put it in the freezer, and then the day of pickup, we just take it out of the container and put it in the green bin.
Mm-hmm. And how about you, Gina?
Yeah, I think similar as the really wet items. Our strategy has been to kind of drain them and then put them in. And also echoing what John said, it's quite convenient for the kitchen items, but then for the other items in the other parts of the house. And I'm here as one of the members of our family, so getting the younger ones to consider that as well in the bathroom is a little bit trickier than in the kitchen, where it's kind of right there and they know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and thank you all for sharing that. I think we've all experienced similar challenges with certain foods. I know myself with the high water content, or if you're a coffee drinker like myself, that can be quite challenging to have quite a bit of liquid in the bottom of my green bin, and I, similar to others, use something to soak all that up. So it's really helpful to hear how everyone handles those specific items and tips that you've shared. So thank you for that. So now we're going to shift from the green bin program to biweekly garbage collection. And some of you have touched on this already, but we're curious to hear about the impacts the green bin program has had on your household. And the question is, how has the green bin program impacted the amount of garbage your household has produced? So Donna, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, pretty well. One kitchen catcher bag every 2 weeks. It's basically just your packaging, your cheese packaging, things like that. That's what ends up in the garbage. Yeah.
And sorry, maybe you can share how your household size?
Oh, 2 people, 2 adults. Yeah.
Okay. That's great. Thank you. And Gina, how about yourself?
So it's reduced. I'm embarrassed though now because it's definitely more than one bag. but we're a larger family, so we have 4 of us, and we have 2 cats. So I'm interested to hear when the discussion turns to what's happening with pet waste and kitty litter as well, because that I think has been the only area that we can't really, where we don't see the reduction, is with that pet waste. But otherwise it has reduced quite a bit, and we haven't had an issue with the biweekly, but we've definitely, and in some instances, especially if we're, you know, over the holidays and things like that, we're gathering more items. So we did see, you know, more waste during that period, but otherwise I wouldn't say it was a barrier. It's just slightly reduced though.
Thanks for sharing that. And John, how about yourself?
I mean, our waste has not changed. What has happened is, instead of getting a big spike in terms of like, well, we happen to fall in the horrible 8-day cycle where we have like, you know, our previous pickup was on a Friday and we have 2 weekends and the whole, you know, and now our garbage pickup is, well, it's 8 business days. It's, you know, 12 days later, everything is very even. So we're basically putting out a very consistent amount of waste each week, which I have to imagine benefits the waste workers who are not hucking our heavy bags from 12 days of not being picked up in the garbage. I certainly, in my youth, I have 3 kids. We're a family of 5. We, you know, the kids appreciate that they don't feel like they're wasting food throwing it out. So there's the amount of waste has not changed, but the practicalities of handling it are much better, in that we don't have overly heavy, you know, garbage bags going out. It's sort of a small green waste. You're very light, mostly plastic filled garbage bags, and then the same recycling as before, but on a much more even schedule.
Right, and that's great. That's such a great point, John, that we had moved to same day collection when we had reduced from 6 zones to 5 zones, and that weekly consistency may help with what you just had shared. And thank you for everyone and sharing your how your household has been impacted. And it sounds like individually there's been impacts across the board. And now we want to talk about the recent changes in the garbage collection, but the shift to biweekly garbage collection, which we've talked about, has been an adjustment for many. And we're interested in hearing about your household's experience, which I apologize is a little bit repetitive. But the 5th question is, how do you find the shift to biweekly garbage pickup? And if you'd like to share anything you haven't already, please do so. Gina, how about we start with you?
Sure. I mean, I don't have much to add beyond what was said before. We haven't really noticed like it hasn't been an inconvenience. I think, like John had said, the consistency has helped a little bit with planning, especially when you're running a busy household. So I appreciate that. Yeah.
All right. And how about we go back to John, if there was anything else you'd like to add to how you found the shift with biweekly garbage pickup?
Only easier and better, except for the weirdness. I mean, holidays are always weird, and you know, the little calendars that the city puts out, and you know, is deeply appreciated, because, but on the whole, the more consistency is, the better.
All right. Thank you. And Donna, how about yourself?
Yeah, no problem with the biweekly garbage pickup. I just have to double check the calendar. Okay, so is it garbage this week or not? Yeah.
And thank you very much for that
Yep.
tip, and thank you all for sharing.
God bless the neighbors who put it out and remind me to put it out.
All right, so this brings us to the final question. And what we'd like to do is wrap this up with some practical advice for our fellow Londoners who are listening this evening, and share any tips that you could offer that would make the Green Bin program even easier for people. So the last question, question number 6, is, are there any tips that you can share with Londoners to make their experience with using the Green Bin as easy as possible? So how about we start with John?
When I was about grade 7 or 8, London was one of the first cities to adopt a blue box program. And the first weekend when I'm in my neighborhood, there was a big old windstorm that blew everything out of the blue boxes, because that's what wind will do. That single event was, you know, a lot of folks were like, well, it doesn't work. You can't have, you know, but really, on the whole, Blue Boxes have been one of the most successful recycling programs in the last 30 years. And so any frustration that folks, like these things do need time, and a single year or a single month of it not quite being perfect is not a reason to abandon it. So having patience for us to figure it out, especially how to figure out how to service houses or situations that aren't quite as optimal as those of us who are lucky enough to live in single family homes. Give those who work on this every day time to do it. Beyond that, it's pretty easy. Buy the special bags and put it out in the special bags, and tie it up and keep your green bin clean. Like, take the time to hose it out if you can, because that'll make the difference. But it has been more good than frustration. But it's okay to be frustrated with something that isn't perfect yet, but give people time to get there.
Yeah, and thanks, John. That's a great point, that change does take time to adjust to, and thank you for sharing that advice. Gina?
Yeah, I appreciate everything John said, but also maybe just figuring out what works best for your situation. I think in the summer we were taking it and moving into the bigger bin more. In the winter we don't need to. Just kind of being flexible with it, and figuring out what works for your family, and also figuring out what works best might change a little bit over the course of the year. Depending on conditions, and if you move, maybe you'll have to find new kind of ways of integrating it into your life as your situations change.
That's great advice, and keeping in mind that everyone is individual, and households may have to trial and error a few things until they sort that out, what works for them. And Donna, how about you?
I have a unique way of collecting my scraps in the kitchen. I do use newspapers instead of buying the bags. I found that I didn't really like the smell with the bags. So there's a little trick that the city of Calgary, they posted on their newspaper website, and it's a folding technique. Kind of looks like a little hat inside the kitchen container. And I just use that, and I find there's no odor. In the summer, I didn't have any issues with critters that might, grow, like with some of your, watermelon scraps and things like that. So I've been really happy with that. I have a great neighbor who gives me his newspaper. I read it, and then we recycle it again. So.
And that's great. So just to clarify, you wrap your organics in the newspaper?
Yeah. So it's like a little hat inside the kitchen catcher, like the kitchen container. And when it's 3/4 of the way full, I just fold it uniquely, and it's a great little. If you go online with the city of Calgary, they'll show you with their folding technique.
And that's then transferred into the large curbside bin?
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure those on the session this evening will go and look into that, as you've shared. That's been helpful for you.
Yeah. Great.
So that wraps up all of our questions. And I just want to share that thank Donna and Gina and John very much for sharing your lived experience with using the green bin programs, all the helpful tips that you've shared, some of the challenges that you've experienced throughout the year, and also how you've been experiencing that shift to biweekly garbage collection, and how you've been trialing and individualizing your household to really work within that. So I'm going to pass it back over to Caitlin.
Thanks, Jessica. And yeah, thanks again, everyone. And a big thank you as well to Eric and Jay for their presentations. We are just heading into the Q&A portion now of the session. So I will hand it back over to Joanna, and and then we'll address the questions that have been coming in.
Terrific. Thanks, Caitlin. Great. So I am going to be sharing the questions that people have been putting in our Q&A throughout the session, and we do have a lot of them. So great questions. Thanks, everyone, for putting those in there. And feel free to continue to do that as we answer based on the time that we have, but also know that you will be getting a follow-up email with the email that you registered with for tonight with more information as well, especially if we can't get to your questions. Okay, so the majority of our questions were related to green bins. So that's where I will start. And we're just trying to group the questions. Jasmine and I are working behind the scenes here just to make sure that we're capturing what everyone's saying, and we will do our best. Anyway, I'm going to start with a quick one here from someone in North London who is asking about the separate pickup. So she's saying that green bin is picked up separate from other recycling bins. Will there be a pickup by a split truck all at once? Is that coming? So I think that will go to you, Jay.
And I guess I'm a bit surprised to hear that's not occurring. So, Joanna, that sound, if I understand correctly, that she's putting out garbage in green bin and it's not being collected by a split compartment truck?
Sorry, Jay, I may have misspoken. So it's green bin and recycling.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
No, yes, okay. Sorry, in that case, no, we have to have two trucks that come in for that. The recycling truck has two compartments, one for containers, one for the paper products, and that goes to a dedicated facility. Those materials cannot touch organic materials at all, so we would never have sort of a three-compartment truck. It just wouldn't make sense.
Gotcha. Okay, terrific. Okay, I'm just going to go, we've divided the questions into green bin, biweekly, garbage pickup, bulky items, that sort of thing. So I'm just going to borrow from each section here. And there's a question about the survey that the city did about green bin and garbage collection. And there was just a question about some of those responses and what the city is learning from the survey about the garbage pickup and green bins. So I think, Jay, that might be you again.
Well, for those that have answered the survey in the feedback form, there's usually about 12 to 14 questions covering off all the services. So we have learned an awful lot. In fact, our first report back to council, I mentioned there that we had 7,500 responses. Now, those are all in for the standard questions. Then we had literally hundreds of individual comments, pros of the system, cons of the system, positive comments, negative comments, you name it. Jessica's on our team here. We do our best to sort through all of them, and we make sure then that information is brought forward to committee and council, and it helps to support how we make program changes. So the same thing is going to occur with the most recent feedback form. 3,700 people have responded to that. We haven't sorted through that information yet, but this is where we learn on what's working well for Londoners. We've heard from 3 people tonight, and even there, I learned some new information and tricks. And in fact, something's obviously going on in Calgary that we need to know a little bit more about too. So that's what we do with the information we get from people. So hopefully that answers at least part of that question.
Yes, yeah, for sure. Thanks, Jay. And along those lines, I think it might be a similar answer, but someone's asking, has the city analyzed why some neighborhoods might have higher green bin participation than others?
We haven't got to the analysis portion yet, but essentially you see from the tons coming in, there's a lot of similarities out there. But we also do know that when we get into some student areas, the participation is dropping. We get into some other areas of the city, and I'll be honest, we scratch our heads. There doesn't appear to be a logical answer. What it suggests is that we're going to have to probably do some focus groups or hold additional sessions with people who are participating, like many tonight, but perhaps more important, to learn from people who are not participating and to strengthen that information that we're receiving from those that have indicated they're not participating and why.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks, Jay. And this one I'll put out to everyone, including our panel members tonight. We've had a few people mention an increase in the presence of rats in our city. And so I thought I would put it out to Jay and Jessica, but as well, if the panel members, are you seeing any extra rats? So the question was, since the Green Bin program started, I'm seeing more rats in the Old South neighborhood. What can be done? And I'll open up to whomever wants to respond to that first. No one's noticing rats? Any complaints, Jay or Jessica?
Jessica, what are you hearing there?
I don't recall hearing about a specific complaint about rats. However, if I think about answering that question about pests in general, we've heard about wild animals such as squirrels or raccoons trying to get into the green bin. And I don't know if those on the panel is that a hand job?
I mean, I live in Old North, or not Old North. I live in near Medway. I live off the creek. We have deer, we have foxes, we have rabbits, we have skunks, we have coyotes. And by far the biggest issue I would describe is people who, like humans are the issue, where they overpack their bins, or people go through and root through them to find recycling they can claim. For us in our neighborhood, I'm not every part of the city, but animals are not the issue. It's human behavior. Leaving garbage around is far more an issue than any particular animal.
So just to go back to sharing some tips that we've shared with those residents that have had those concerns is, first of all, I think it was discussed from one of the panelists had offered this tip, but to keep the bin cleaning it out, whether you're using a liner for your kitchen container and putting those bags into the green bin to keep the large green bin container clean, or wiping it out or hosing it out if that's something possible that you can do. We had also talked about inside storage, and I recognize that's not an option for everyone. Trying to keep it up off the ground, or not along a fence line, so animals can't jump on the fence to jump down on it. And there's also been some feedback shared from residents that may have used some sort of herbal remedy, like a essential oil kind of to deter, like a natural product for pest deterrent. And to also keep the latch locked. So push down on that latch to keep the lid completely locked if you're storing it outside. And I think that would be, a few tips. There's also quite a few also listed on the City of London's website.
Terrific. Thanks, everyone. Terrific. A quick question on bulky item collection. We'll go over to that. Jay, I think this one is for you. Is there a cost to residents for bulky item pickup?
No cost at all. The only thing we ask is that you have to register in advance, and then we schedule the pickup, and you will have it on your the next garbage day should you get us in time. There's, I think, a 5-day period. So no cost at all.
Perfect. Thank you. And a question from someone living downtown about blue and green bins, so recycling and green bins, and they're asking about plans to have the bins downtown. I know that some downtown residents have them, but if you could speak to that, Jay.
Well, with the recycling system, it is in many locations, primarily high-rise buildings. We are working with industry to determine how the best approach would be to bring recycling services into the core area for the residential units that are quite often above stores. So there's work underway. We have to wait and hear how industry is going to approach this. The recycling system actually now is run by the people that produce the products that go into the recycling bins. So London actually as a city has less say in how these programs will be implemented. With respect to the green bin system, that is something that's going to be much, much more challenging. And that'll be done as we roll further into the multi-residential system. But I will be honest here, don't expect anything real soon. Recycling, yes, in 2026. But green bin system in some of those difficult, more challenging areas, no, that will be a couple of years away.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. And I have a question for Eric. Eric, there's a question about the compost produced by
Yes.
Convertus, and they're asking, is there a difference between what Convertus produces for compost versus things that are used for gardening? For example, garden compost is generally advising against using any meat or bones in it. That's what the question is about. So just a question about Convertus and the type of compost that's being produced.
Well, compost is used in gardens. The source material can be obviously can be meat and bones, but the bones are removed in our screening process. But it's really the maturation of the material, so it's ready for gardens. The stuff that goes into agricultural lands is actually drier because farmers don't want to pay for water. They get that from the skies, and it's not matured to a point where you can spread it in gardens. And the material is also usually cut with sands or other like leaf and yard type products to robust it up. So they are different products, but the source material can be used as long as it's composted properly.
Okay.
And I guess I should add, the difference between what we do and what you do in your backyard composter is the temperatures that we can maintain to pasteurize it and break down the bones. It's not normally possible in a garden situation. So backyard composting, that's why they would not recommend it in those situations.
Okay. Okay, terrific. And in a related question, someone is asking, could we not use the material that's produced by Convertus to help with the city trees that are planted on city boulevards? So Jay and Eric, I don't know if you'd want to talk about that.
I'll let Jay answer that question because I'm sure he's got lots of compost from the leaf and yard we put out every year.
So right now, as part of closing the loop, we do that with different kinds of materials, primarily, as Eric mentioned, from leaf and yard waste. That's part of sometimes the mix the city uses. We work with current suppliers around London. Now, I think, though, what's going to be fascinating is what Eric has talked about when this higher level compost is produced and the uptake of that. So samples will be available in later this year. So it's one of those things that as the more we do this, the more opportunities that are going to occur. And the idea of what was suggested there about working with Reforest London and tree planting in London, all part of future plans, a great way of closing the loop.
Terrific. Thanks very much. And Eric, I'm just going to ask you one quick follow-up question. Someone said, does Convertus offer high school field trips?
We don't typically offer high school field trips. The main reason being, we actually do some of Fanshawe right now with one of their postgraduate operations courses. And we actually do the tour outside the plant because in order to get that many people to go through our facility, as you imagine, it's like your green bin multiplied by thousands. So, and we do have heavy equipment in there and stuff like that. I can share the link to the video I showed earlier. That's actually a really good tour of the facility. And that's how we do tours.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. And I'll follow up with one more Convertus question. Someone's asking about the carbon footprint of the facility.
The carbon I don't have an exact number, but we do produce most of the energy that goes in the composting process from the composting. We actually, not only in our video we show there's actually already biology on the food waste, we also recycle material back previously into it to get it going, and it actually generates heat from the material. We do have fans to drive the energy, but Ontario's grid's relatively clean, so it is relatively small, but there is a little bit of a carbon footprint. But one of Convertus's goals is to make that zero.
Excellent. Thanks, Eric. Great. Let's talk about pet waste. Why not? So we've had a few questions about this, and there's a question about whether or not the city could encourage the use of compostable bags for pet waste in London. Jay, do you want to take this one?
Sure, Joanna. If council moves forward in that direction, that would actually be a very, very key piece. The trouble is we don't control the marketplace. So if you go out and purchase bags, there's such a variety of bags that would have to be part of the consideration. So these are the things that we're looking at. But yes, the notion of a bag, we all know we want people to pick up their pet waste when it's on the ground. And obviously the bag there is usually the most common choice.
Okay, thank you. And we have a question about timing as well. And this might be you, Jay, and Eric. It says, the question is, how long does it take from the time the green bin waste is picked up from the curb to the time the compost is ready to be distributed?
Over to Eric.
Okay. Well, when they pick up in the morning, that's at our facility by roughly midday, the same day. That then enters in our plant, and we shred it and fill a tunnel that day. And then, as I said in my earlier slide, with between 10 and 14 days later, it's removed from the tunnel, screened, and weather depending, we try to get out to the farmers' fields, but it has to be dry. So luckily for us, this is actually considered dry. Like right now is very dry. So
Excellent. Thanks so much. Right. So we do have, let's see, we just have lots to choose from here. Just trying to make sure we're getting a good representation of everyone's questions. So there have been a number of questions, not surprisingly, about the biweekly garbage pickup. Just a question whether that would be reconsidered with the results of the survey or any other potential changes to the frequency of the garbage pickup. I think that's you, Jay.
Yeah, well, I can't speak for council, of course, but the goal of staff, of course, is to bring forward our information. And in that, we will not only be bringing forward what other communities have done, we talked a bit about that, but also more importantly is, could there be changes in London and what would the additional cost be? More service, unfortunately, requires more cost. And we know that from a taxpayer perspective, our goal is to reduce cost. So this will be a good discussion among committee and council when they look at those types of opportunities. The councillors have heard from some, no doubt about it. At the same time, they have heard from others that they've been able to manage with the biweekly collection service. So maybe there's something where additional service is offered at certain times of the year. That is something that can also be explored. So it is a tricky one, no doubt about it. But when you think of it, we've been at it for 1 year. We know many have been able to accommodate it. We know others have challenges. Perhaps we just need some more time and further thinking on this, but it won't be our call. It'll be committee and council's call on what changes may or may not be required as the program moves through year 2.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jay. A quick question on recycling. I'm seeing we have about 5 more minutes for questions, so I'll get through as many as we can. The recycling question is weight part of the cost of picking up recycling? And follow-up question here, someone else was asking, is the contract for picking up recycling decided by weight?
So I'll answer that 2 ways. It's not decided by weight. It is decided by the number of households served. Recycling is always about volume. Recycling trucks fill up more from a volume perspective than they would from a weight perspective. But here's the good news, is that since July 1st, Jessica, I think 2023, right? The recycling costs are actually paid by the producers of the materials that go in the blue box. For the remainder of this year, the city is really just the administrator of the program on behalf of industry, but starting January 1, 2026, the program is going to actually be operated by those that produce the materials. It's referred to as a producer responsibility organization. The company is called Circular Materials, but our contractor in town will be working for them, not for the City of London. And another key thing is that a couple materials are likely to be added to the blue box as early as January 2026, And one of those items will be some of the plastic film items. Some of those items are the ones there that we've heard tonight are a key part of what remains in the garbage. So that'll be exciting news that'll come further this or later this year.
Perfect. Okay, that's excellent. And there's a question here. Oh, I just wanted to add something that Jay, you answered earlier, but just wanted to restate it. Someone was asking about broken bins. Jay, you had said earlier that they may be under warranty or the city may be able to replace them. Four separate people had asked about broken green bins. I don't know if you wanted to say anything else about that, Jay. I think you covered it.
No, covered it. Yes, we need to hear from you. And Jessica, what's the best number for them to reach us on?
There's 3 different ways. So if you'd like to make a phone call to Service London, it's 519-661-2489. You can also submit the service request yourself through the Service London portal. That's service.london.ca, or email to service@london.ca.
Excellent. Thanks, Jessica. And I think I have time for one more quick question. I'm trying to pick a quick one here, and I do apologize. We just could not get to every question. I think we're up to about 40 or 35 range here. So I'm just going to try and pick one. And there's something here about bulky item collection. Do neighborhoods around the university, specifically student houses, do they also have to call in a pickup, or does the city just go and pick up the garbage? I think this would be a call-in situation.
I can answer that one, Joanna.
Great.
Yes, please, to have all households that require that service for large furniture pickup to, like I had mentioned, call or use the Service London portal. And that's because it's a separate booking system. So we are picking up at households that request for that service.
Terrific. Thanks, Jessica. And thanks everyone for your answers. And Jay, did you want to add something?
Joanna, because I'm the only one wearing a tie here, could I have the privilege of asking a question of our panelists?
Of course.
What I'd really like to know is, we've heard some really positive stories tonight, and there's some challenges, no doubt about it, but could each one of them quickly state, how do they chat with their neighbors? Do they find that in their neighborhood, a few people do this and others don't? And it's all part of this. And I'm just kind of wondering what their neighborhood experience is like with respect to the green bin.
For sure. Why don't we start with John?
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Cool. I can't say I've chatted with my neighbors about it. I would say looking up and down the street, it seems to be pretty consistently used. On the whole, there's not been any kind of frustration expressed in the interactions we've had. The consistent, probably, if I were to sort of go back through conversations outside my neighborhood, storing a bunch of rotting food in your garage in the hot summer can be kind of gross. And if I were to say that, if you are the luxury that you have a garage, then, or a space where you can shed or whatever you can store it in, but I don't think this is unique to London. I think this is going to be unique to, it's going to be everywhere that has a green bin program. You're going to have to store your food for a certain amount of time. And at the end of it, hosing out a can is, for lots of people, manageable. If you have a disability or if you have a situation where that's not something you can do, it's going to be frustrating. And so, nothing in what London's doing to me stands out as different than what has already been dealt with 5 and 10 and 15 years ago by other cities. So, and is no different than like your squirrels or raccoons or whatever chewing through your garbage bags if you don't have that same storage. So I think it's a new, different challenge, but like garbage has been hard for thousands of years. And on the whole, I think the city program is pretty tight for 85% of situations. And so, not to get bogged down in the 15% of times, it's not great.
Thanks, John. Yeah, that's terrific. Donna, do you want to share your thoughts?
Yeah, sure. I would say we have a keen neighborhood that's participating. I noticed the green bins on collection day. And I did have a couple of neighbors that came to me in the summer and said, "What are you doing about the odor? Because I don't know if I can keep this in my garage any longer." And I gave her a little tutorial with the newspaper, and I think she tried it for a few weeks. I haven't circled back because we're in the winter season, but I will find out if she is using it in the summer. It does cut down on the odor. I'm really happy with it. The only challenge is I seem to be the only one out of the two of us that can fold the newspaper into the little hat.
Thank you. Great. And Gina.
Thanks. Yeah, I think when the program first came out, we were kind of discussing it more, and now we haven't discussed it lately. I guess that's how things go. When something's new, it's a bit of a topic of conversation. I feel like, looking down the street, like most people are using it. I just something like John was saying there, just, yeah, like maybe we can help each other out more. Maybe we should be talking about if somebody you're hosing out your bin, why not hose out your neighbor's bin if they're around, you can always ask, or if somebody needs some support with that sort of thing. So maybe it's something we could have more dialogue about, because honestly, at this tip from Donna, I'm so excited now to go and try to make this little bag with the newspaper. So it is nice to converse and learn tips and tricks from people, but I guess it just becomes every day, and then you stop kind of conversing about it. So this has been really nice to just be able to share a little bit and hear about what other people are doing.
Thank you very much. Great. Thanks, Jay, for that. It's nice to give the last word to our folks who are doing it. So what I'm going to do is do a quick wrap up now. We have a few more slides just to show you what's coming up. And a reminder, we are going to send a follow-up with more answers to your questions. So Jasmine, I think we're going to look at a few more slides before we say goodbye to people. Great. Right. So we have a program here. You should see it on your screen. Discover the Westminster Pond Center. We're going to be doing this in the beautiful month of February 8th. It's a Saturday, 10 to 1. And it's going to be a chance for you to visit with local environmental groups and take a wonderful tour of such a beautiful ESA, a beautiful environmentally significant area in our city. And we have a bit of a bingo for you to discover local wintertime nature. So please join us for that. And as you'll see on the slide too, we have the link for you for the Green Bin City page, and as well as the Green in the City link for you to register for this event coming up in February. But other than that, we are going to say goodbye to you tonight. And any last words, Jay, before we go?
Just a big thank you to all who were with us today, our three panelists, Eric Brown, Joanna, Caitlin, Jasmine. Thanks for helping this. And keep in mind, this will be available for those to watch at a later point in time, as you pointed out, and the conversation needs to carry on. We all learn from each other.
Yes, indeed. Thanks so much. Yep. Thanks everyone tonight. And we'll keep the conversation going. Good night.